Hello, everybody. Today on the podcast, I'm joined by Glen, a kettlebell coach, trainer, and a true expert out of London, the UK. He's been training with kettlebells for over 15 years, and he's all about helping people get stronger, move better, and stay consistent. If you've ever wondered what makes kettlebells so different and so effective, this episode's for you. Glen, I'm excited to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Matthew. It's a real pleasure to be here.
And for the listeners who may not be familiar with your line of work yet, can you give us a quick rundown of who you are and what you do?
Sure. So my name's Glenn, or on Instagram, the KB6, which just stands for the Kettlebell 6. And that's the different ways in which we move: push, pull, hinge, squat, loaded carry, and the twists being number 6, things like Turkish get-ups and walking locomotion, that sort of stuff. I'm a personal trainer in my sort of normal day-to-day life here in London, England. So I see anywhere between 5 and 7 clients a day, 5 days a week. I start my day like most personal trainers do at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning and run through the day with personal trainers. But then I have this whole other sort of persona online as the kettlebell guy. It's branched out a little bit in the last few years to include things like sandbags, garters, maces, clubs. So I'm sure we'll get into all of that. But I'm a business owner in facilitating those operations, basically.
No, thank you for sharing that. And Glenn, it's always fascinating to hear the why behind everyone's passions. How did your fitness journey begin?
I guess that's like, how far back do you want to go? Like my family that I grew up in are a relatively fit, I mean, by population standards, they're a very fit, family to have grown up in. I've got mum and dad still married, living in North London, my 2 younger brothers, and we all engaged in some degree of fitness or exercise or sport or martial arts throughout our lives. Both my parents have completed marathons. My dad has done multiple triathlons. He is touching 70 now. He's like 67, 68 years old. And he still will pound out 100 kilometers on the bike every week, as well as do kettlebell workouts most mornings. My brothers and I have taken part in martial arts most of our lives. So, like, the journey started because it was part of the family culture, not because there was some great compulsion to become the next world's best athlete in something. Wasn't like a crazy maniacal approach to exercise. It was just part of our family culture. Like, you need to find a way to move and find a way to enjoy moving, whether it's taking part in a sport or a martial art, or just going for a walk and turning the walk into a marathon distance like my mum did. So it's always been there. It's always been a part of my life. And throughout my schooling, I tried my hand at anything I could in every sport that I could. So I've played most sports, English sports. I haven't done in America. You'll be engaged in maybe lacrosse, depending on where you are, or there's much more American football, that sort of stuff. I haven't played those sports, but football, cricket, rugby, tennis, badminton, like pretty much everything you can think of with a racket or a ball, I've probably had a go at and played in some sort of team with as well. And then turned my hand to a few different martial arts, which I've accumulated something like, I don't know, about 10 to 12 years of martial arts practice over the years as well. And really, I was going down a route in my life 15 to 20 years ago where I'd done the obligate university degree in business because I thought that's what I should do, and ended up working in a marketing department for a company that I hated. I hated my alarm clock every morning, and I hated what I did for a living because it felt kind of valueless, or like I was shoehorning myself into a life I was supposed to be living. And then, for a number of reasons, that whole version of my reality in life came to a crashing end. And when it did that, I had this unique opportunity in my mid-20s to change direction in life, like a complete direction shift. And that's when I decided to pursue a passion, which was working in this industry. And I requalified as a trainer and started building my business from, I guess, the age of around 22 to 24, something like that. And I included everything. I wanted to learn bodybuilding. I wanted to learn powerlifting. I wanted to learn the unconventional stuff like kettlebells, which is what you see behind me. These are kettlebells. And it's really through that exploration over the first, let's say, 4 years in the industry that I began to hone my own real interest in what worked for my body, what worked for my clients, what worked for my goals, and that sort of stuff. And that's kind of why I've ended up where I am. My mom's an educator by trade, as she's a teacher. And I think I found my own role as a teacher just in this industry.
Yeah, Glenn, what got you first interested in kettlebells?
I think a combination of the fact that I've always enjoyed combat sports, and it seemed to work really well with strength development for unconstrained movement patterns. So when your primary goal is bodybuilding, it kind of makes sense to do a lot of machine-based training because that's how you isolate muscles really well. Obviously, we can get down a rabbit hole of what's better, free weights or machine-based training, whatever. But when you're engaging in a sport that's much more chaotic in nature, I really liked how kettlebells could be moved around me rather than me fit to the thing. So a barbell, you have to fit. It's unmovable. It's just a straight line and you kind of have to fit it. With a kettlebell, you can fit that thing to your body. It can wrap slightly differently to the right side than it does to the left because we have individual differences, allowing you to squat in a way that kind of fits your form rather than just arbitrarily getting under a barbell and sitting into a squat with a barbell on your back, which is very formalized in terms of the technique you need and the position you have to be in. Not everyone fits in the same box. And I found that kettlebells allowed me to supplement my training initially with accessory lifts that made me leave the gym feeling good, not broken. And at the time, it was a lot of ego lifting and a lot of just trying to get as strong as possible, which would typically break bodies down. And I found that I needed more of a balance of giving me some of the things that made my body feel good after a workout, not just broken down. So initially it was a bit of exploration, having a bit of an open mind. Podcasts at the time, like Joe Rogan's podcast way back 15, 17 years ago, something like that, where he might make mention of them. And I thought, those weird cannonballs in the corner with handles on them, I might give them a bit more attention than I have been giving them because that guy, Joe Rogan, he's using them a lot and he's fairly jacked and, very capable. So let me turn my hand to them a bit more. And from there, the world opened up and learning of Steve Cotter's methods or Dan John's methods or Pavel Tatsulin's methods or any of these real industry leaders I started learning more from and then figuring actually if they make me feel really good at the end of my training, why not make most of my training around that rather than shoehorning myself into what gym training was supposed to be and using kettlebells as an accessory. So I started to make it like the main part of my workout, basically.
No, that makes sense. A lot of people rave, like Joe Rogan, about kettlebells. Can you unpack that a little bit? Does it help you just with your grip, and does it hit certain muscles differently?
Yeah, what I really like is that there's no days off for the kettlebell. Like I used to do quite a lot of like conventional training, and you used to kind of drag your heels into the gym and sit on a machine and go through the reps and then leave the gym at the end of that workout feeling like I kind of got away with that workout. I barely sweated, I barely exerted myself. But if you accept that the goal of training is to create strategic discomfort, strategic obstacles, like not arbitrary obstacles, I want to create an obstacle for my muscles that they can meet that resistance and grow from it. Every workout with a kettlebell requires your attention, it requires your coordination, it requires your mobility, it requires your balance, it requires your whole body. You can't do a kettlebell squat unless you've warmed up your forearms, your grip, your shoulders, because you've got to clean the kettlebells. You can't do shoulder work with kettlebells unless you've warmed up your hips because you've got to clean the kettlebells. You can't do anything with a kettlebell unless your entire body is warm, which is my point. So to your point, does it work grip in a different way? Yeah, it works all of it. And what's amazing for me is that you start treating the body when you train with kettlebells as a unit that works as a unit rather than breaking the body down into, well, I need to train my bicep or my lateral delts or my calves, or actually all of it is connected. And if you get very effective and efficient moving with resistance as a unit, you get strong as a unit. And I think what's really fascinating for me as a coach is when you bring someone into kettlebell training who hasn't typically done kettlebell training but has a history of exercise, they start saying, why's my lower back really tight? And you think, well, you've probably not used it in your training before. You've always isolated everything, never really connecting these parts together. But now what I'm asking you to do is grab something heavy, lots of grip strength, lots of upper body strength, bring it to your shoulder, go through a lunge or a walk or a carry or a press. All of that requires you to be connected from heel to head, building a strong core, strong trunk, strong neural drive, strong grip, all the rest of it. So it's an amazing way of identifying initially weak link in the chain, which is your entire body, and building that link back up so that everything is strong enough for you to be like a well developed level of strength from head to heel, like I said. And what I would often see in a typical gym is someone step under a barbell with a weight that they could never have got onto their back and go and try and attempt to squat it. But you can't do that with a kettlebell because you have to be strong enough to do the clean to get it to the rack position first before you squat it. So you end up developing a system that is as strong as the weakest link in that chain.
That's incredible. I mean, it's cool to see how kettlebells hit muscles in ways you don't expect.
Yeah, I think Pavel Tatsulin is the one who coined the "what the hell" effect of kettlebells, and he says like if let's say all you ever did was a kettlebell snatch, that was the only exercise you ever did, you would have something which he defines as the "what the hell" effect, because you just get stronger in all of these weird ways. Your endurance, your strength, your grip strength, your coordination, your balance all improves. And it's like, what the hell? I didn't do specific balance exercise, specific grip exercise. I didn't spend an hour on a treadmill improving my cardio, but it's part of the what the hell effect. Your whole body needs to work every time you use a kettlebell. So you get this immense systemic benefit.
Now, is it okay for beginners to start with kettlebells?
So is it good for beginners? Like, absolutely. I think it's an amazing way to start training a beginner, whether it's a grown up or a child, because you do start using the whole body altogether. And my son has his own kettlebell here. It's 4 kilos. He's 6 years old. So he already knows how to do good swings, good hand-to-hand swings, which is like an alternating single-hand swing, cleans, shoulder presses, deadlifts. He can do all of them with a kettlebell in a way that's very safe. And this is the number one thing that parents will say when it comes to children lifting is, isn't it going to stunt their growth? But they forget that their kids are doing resistance training all day, every day, by carrying the book bag to school, by lifting and carrying friends, or jumping off of climbing frames and those sorts of things. They're always under resistance and they're always growing. The point is doing it safely. One of the best cues I came up with came out of trying to make sure that my son was safe when he was trying to copy me. So how do you teach a 4 or 5-year-old to get into neutral spine, which is a term that means nothing to grown-ups, let alone children? Well, you tell him to have a proud chest like a superhero and a farty bum. Now, with a proud chest and a farty bum, you've got a neutral spine, and you can get that 4 or 5-year-old to pick something up off the floor with really good position. And in fact, it ends up being a great cue for most grown-ups too, because it's such a joke, it's such a silly term that it takes the pressure off them, and everyone inherently knows how Superman stands with a proud chest and how to have a farty bum. And then from there, you can just refine the cues a little bit to include intra-abdominal bracing and all these more grown-up terms and things like that. But it's a great way to train because you're able to train offset unilaterally, like one side at a time, which has a much greater crossover to our real world. Very rarely, if ever, in our real life, carrying things that weigh exactly the same in each hand at the same time. In fact, if you've seen a parent, if you're not one, and if you are a parent, your kids don't weigh the same. If you've got 2 of them, and you'll often carry both of them. If you've just got one, you'll carry one on one side, not evenly in the middle, and then often have to pick up the thing they've left on the floor, or the groceries, or the buggy, or whatever. So by mimicking those stresses in your training, you become so much more adept to a nervous system that can function to create and maintain tension for uneven weights either side of the body, and either carry it over distance, which is locomotion. That's number 6 of the KB6, right? Locomotion and twists. Or just maintain that tension in a way that doesn't feel like it's creating odd imbalances in your back or weird things like that. So it's a fantastic way to train. And because it's unrestricted, you end up developing someone who can move into 360 degrees. They can move it through the sagittal plane, the frontal plane, or the transverse planes with load safely, and therefore future-proof themselves to a large extent from injury or falling or those sorts of things.
That's so interesting how kettlebells can help people move better.
Yeah. It's I really think pound for pound, it's the best piece of equipment money can buy, because as I've said a number of times on my Instagram, actually, you can train every single muscle in the body in every direction with a kettlebell, except really for 2 things. Now, that it's not particularly efficient at a lot of things, but you can't train a pull up with a kettlebell. So you need a chin up bar, which I have here. This is in my home gym, so I have a chin up bar here. The other thing that you can't train with a kettlebell is your hamstring from knee flexion, because crucially, the hamstring crosses both the knee and hip joint. And doing things like swings, cleans, snatches, you're training your hamstring through hip flexion and extension, but you can't train the hamstring from knee flexion. So you need like a hamstring roller, which again, I have in the corner here to do slides or something like that. But aside from those two things, you can train every muscle in the body with the kettlebell. And in terms of the amount of space it takes up, most people don't need a collection like this. Let's say you have 3 kettlebells, a light, a medium, and a heavy, if we can categorize them. They store very easily. They never need to be serviced. They'll last forever. And you can train virtually every muscle in your body with just those small bits of kit. And what's really nice is that on days like today, here it's beautiful and sunny, you can take them out. Take them out to a playground, take them out to the park, take them out to the woods if you want, and have a workout in nature, which just is therapy.
No, that's huge. I mean, most workouts don't hit all those areas.
Right. Yeah. And again, it's kind of part of that time efficiency thing that so many people are looking for. Whether you're a business owner or a parent or whatever, we all have time constraints. And if you know that you can grab one kettlebell and spend between 20 and 35 minutes and get one of the best workouts of your entire life that hits virtually every muscle in your body, and between 25 and 35 minutes later, put that thing down and be done. You haven't had to commute anywhere because it lives next to your couch or under the stairs or wherever. So there's no commute. You grab the bell, get after it. 25 to 35 minutes later, you're done, and you get back on with your day, and you've probably trained more muscles, trained more mechanisms in your body, so strength as well as endurance, as well as cardio. You've trained harder, you've burnt more calories, done more for your long-term health and posture than you would if you were to sit in a gym on a bench or lie on your back and do some bench press or something like that. So in terms of time efficiency, it's incredible. It's unmatched. In terms of muscle development, it's virtually unmatched as well, because so much has to work. Even if you're doing a small thing like a kettlebell press, you've had to get it doing a clean to the rack position, the hands doing the press. It's unreal. I really can't speak highly enough of the benefits of kettlebell training.
Yeah, I've never thought about it that way. I mean, kettlebell training helps with balance, flexibility, and building strength.
Absolutely, yeah. And so much of what we're seeing in research these days is about the nervous system. Like, how do we protect ourselves against aging by keeping our nervous system robust? And that's why so much data has come out about grip strength. The stronger your grip, the longer your life expectancy. It's not about the strength of your grip. It's about the robustness and the strength of your nervous system in order to create muscle contractions at extremity. That's why grip strength is so touted as like an indicator of longevity and of your health. And if your workouts, by and large, train you through lots of grip training, lots of balance, lots of muscle coordination, you are that much less likely to fall in later age. And if you're less likely to fall, you're less likely to get an injury you weren't expecting. And it's those two things, fall and an unexpected injury, that drastically shorten people's lives. From the ages of 60 onwards. I see quite a few clients in my day-to-day work where I see 55 to 80-year-old people and provide for them massive life extension because we train coordination, balance, grip strength, as well as overall physical muscle strength.
No, Glenn, I've seen on your Instagram page you use resistance bands to take it to another level. Can you unpack that for us?
Yeah, sure. Whether that's about rate of force production, there's some more fancy terms, but just the amount of time it takes you to create force or move the weight. It's about creating adaptations to speed. It's about creating a different position where the resistance accumulates. So if you can imagine a kettlebell press, the resistance from the shoulder to the fixation or above your head, it's the same. If I'm pressing 16 kilograms, it's always 16 kilograms. But if I stand in a band, hold the band, and then put the kettlebell there, then it's obviously much heavier at the top than it would be at the bottom. So it's about adapting resistance curves. Like, where is the resistance in the exercise? When I'm doing it for a swing, it's about rate of force production, making sure that I can be faster, produce that force in a shorter amount of time, and thus maintain explosivity. But it's also a great tool for just making the kettlebell last longer. And what I mean by that is, so often people will tell me, oh, I have a 24 or a 32 kilogram kettlebell. That would be, what would that be? A 53 pound or a 71-pound kettlebell for the US. If they have those kettlebells, but then they say to me, you know what? I feel like I'm getting too strong for it, or it's a little bit too light for my squats, or it's too light for my deadlifts. There are ways to add something as cheap as a resistance band to that movement so that you can still get 4 to 6 months of really decent work out of that weight on the kettlebell before then buying the next kettlebell up. So yeah, I mean, just to show you here, I have a decent collection of resistance bands, everything from like bands that I would class as mobility driven bands that are very thin to the kind of bands that you can pull a truck with because they're really thick, but you can massively increase the amount of resistance you carry with resistance bands. And I really like the idea of having a very cheap piece of equipment that stores again very easily, so it disappears outside when you're not using it, but can be added to my kettlebells to give me so much more functionality and so much more life out of that weight before I then need to select a heavier one.
That's very good advice. Are kettlebells good for cardio too?
Are kettlebells what? Sorry, I lost you there for a second. Are kettlebells what?
Are kettlebells good for cardio too?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, there's a whole nother side of kettlebell training. It's called kettlebell sport. And effectively, that is kettlebell endurance. And when we're talking about endurance, we're talking about cardiovascular capacity effectively. Now, what is different with kettlebell sport is that there's a big element of muscular endurance and not just kind of cardiac stress. It's not just your heart that's being stressed and a heart in your lungs, but also muscular endurance as well. But if you took a kettlebell that you would feel like is light, let's say you would find a 20 kilogram kettlebell a difficult weight to press, you would take something like 12 kilos. Let's see if you can hand to hand swing that kettlebell for 100 continuous repetitions before you put it down, go into squats, before you put it down, go into presses. You are going to be gasping for air and your muscles are going to be burning too. So you're going to be doing both your cardio training and muscular endurance, which is so important. I do my best to kind of highlight all of these things with kettlebells. That sure, it's great to be able to press something very heavy once, that's strength work. It's great to be able to press something moderate for sort of your 8 to 15 rep range. That's hypertrophy. You'll grow larger muscles, kind of do a bit of bodybuilding with kettlebells as the implement. But if I can't do the thing I love, like let's say go for a hike with my family for 2 hours, then I need more endurance. And kettlebells can take care of that too. So they can take care of each one of those different elements of your training: strength, hypertrophy, and cardio or endurance. You just slightly change the way you might do certain exercises. So I can use a very heavy kettlebell to do kettlebell swings and be training what is effectively a deadlift motion because it's a hinge. So I'm working strength or speed strength or rate of force production. Then I go lighter and my swing becomes a slightly more hypertrophic exercise for my glutes, or I go much lighter than that and do it over time and it becomes a cardio exercise.
It seems like the kettlebell exercise and training seems like the whole package.
I mean, it's the way it feels to me. And for a long time, I was caught up in the narrative, this is going back 15 or so years, caught up in the narrative that kettlebells aren't for certain things. You can't get strong using kettlebells. They're just for cardio, or kettlebells aren't, whatever. So I used them as just this accessory to the bodybuilding work I was doing with dumbbells and barbells. But actually, like I said to you at the beginning, they made me feel really good. Like I felt physically refreshed after workouts, tired for sure, but my joints didn't feel like they'd taken a beating. And then I started realizing that with actually a few more options with weight, that I could train different modalities, strength, hypertrophy, or endurance, and get everything I ever wanted from kettlebells. Now, where I've deviated from that in the last few years is that I've started to add things like sandbags, maces, and something called Indian clubs to my training, but it's still for the same driver that I want to be systemically strong. Like if you can, it's a very different thing picking up an 85 kilogram sandbag than it is to picking up an 85 kilogram deadlift from a barbell. The barbell is conveniently shaped for you to grip it. It's at a convenient height because of the height of the plates or the thickness of the plates. So there's something convenient about it. There is nothing convenient about a sandbag or a stone to pick that up. And when you get used to picking those things up, you become awkwardly strong. You become strong like a grappler is strong. Ligaments and tendons in your fingers, your hands, your wrists, your elbows, they all become strong. And then when it comes to Indian clubs and maces, they train something so unique that nothing else here replicates it, and that is the throwing motions. That is effectively the number one thing that separates us from the animal kingdom, is our ability to locomote and use things called oblique slings and throw. Throwing was such an important part of human evolution that allowed us to move away from the animal kingdom. And yet we have no way of training it in a conventional gym space. But when you use a club or a mace, as something that's been used for hundreds, if not thousands of years on the Indian subcontinent, but now that's been pulled into more of a mainstream strength and conditioning program. The Indian clubs and maces improved my mobility drastically, were amazing for cardio, improved my grip strength and forearm strength massively, but then also gave me a way to train these things called oblique slings in the body, those throwing mechanisms, to become so much stronger.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, that kind of perspective we need more of.
I think it would be really interesting if we started seeing it becoming mainstream in, take, for example, someone like your baseball pitcher, right? There are very high end and very over engineered machines that they use, like, let's, for the Europeans, let's say like a javelin thrower. It's a very similar movement pattern, a javelin thrower to a baseball pitcher. They're both leaning heavy on the back leg, stepping heavy onto the lead leg, leaving their arm behind, transferring everything across them. There are machines that are used to train the nervous system through proper mechanics of improving efficiency for that movement, that exercise, or that sport. But in terms of adding resistance to that, it's very, very difficult to do that in a gym scenario. And as a result, conditioning the shoulder joint for that kind of movement, that kind of repetition, it's very difficult. But I'd love to know what would happen if we started seeing swimmers, tennis players, baseball pitchers, throwers, javelin throwers using implements like this to become strong through the throwing mechanics with proper resistance. I just think it's not represented enough, and it's an amazing, amazing piece of equipment.
Yeah, that could be a game changer. I mean, most people don't even think about it that way.
Yeah, exactly. I know that, like, essentially one of the things that started me off in this career was I was always an enthusiast in the gym, and I was training, again, like a youngster, doing ego lifts in the gym. I was on a bench press and I got convinced to do a weight that I should never have been doing. And I dislocated my shoulder going in the opposite direction. So I was lying on a bench. I got spotted by someone really badly who got distracted by someone in nice yoga pad and was watching her walk across the gym and moved the bar rather than evenly upwards. He rotated as he moved and pulled the bar over one shoulder, and I dislocated my shoulder. I was told I needed surgery, or I'd never be able to do like a front crawl motion in swimming again, or throw an overhand right and striking. But instead of getting surgery, I researched the rehabilitation that baseball pitchers, quarterbacks, and swimmers would go through, because effectively those are the people with the most expensive shoulders in the world. So I thought, if I look at the people whose shoulders are the greatest asset and look at how they are looked after, I think if I did their post-surgical rehab as my pre-surgical rehab, could only be a good thing. And inevitably it was. I avoided surgery, and my shoulders are stronger than they've ever been. But effectively, that was how I found that motion of the Indian club kind of motion, because that motion allowed me to fully rehabilitate my shoulder through these odd ball and socket positions. You can only get to these positions with ball and socket joints. So I was all of a sudden able to rehabilitate my shoulder in a way that I could never have done with a conventional dumbbell program, which had me pulling and pushing in straight lines. And I just wish more people knew about it.
That is such a good point. I mean, really do your research into the professionals that have the same problems. That I mean, that's how you do anything. That's what I do for YouTube. I just YouTube it, and you can find out any answers out there.
Yeah, I mean, with the right prompt these days, you could get ChatGPT to write you that program, or choose, AI of choice. If you said to ChatGPT, for argument's sake, oh, I want you to act as the physiotherapy that works with the Braves, or works with whatever, input whatever sporting organization you want there. I am their lead pitcher, quarterback, whatever. I've injured my shoulder and I need a rehabilitation program that does not include surgery. It would probably write a fairly decent first hatch program, especially if you said something like, I need unrestricted movement similar to that of the use of an Indian club or mace or Gada. It would have some good suggestions in there. But it was something that I was surprised that more people weren't doing. This is going back 15-ish years ago, where you just look for the person with the most expensive joint. Like, uh, there's no one who has a more expensive shoulder than an NFL quarterback. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's few sportsmen on earth that are paid more for that single role of throwing than that guy. So if you look at, like, well, if I'm just Joe Blogs and I do a bit of amateur lifting because I enjoy it, but the rest of the time I have a day job and a family and whatever, it doesn't matter who you are. Have a look at who's doing the rehab for the most expensive version of that joint, whether it's a knee or a hip or a shoulder or a lower back. Look at what they're doing and implement it pre-surgery. It's the number one rule I have for all my clients. If ever they're on a surgical wait list, we do intensive post-surgical rehab before the surgery, and none of my clients end up getting the surgery because we do it like our lives depend on it. It's such an overused expression, but your life does depend on it. It's just your life will go to surgery if you don't do it right. And if you do it right, like it's really important to you, chances are you'll avoid getting cut surgery.
Yeah, and that is so true. Glenn, I love what you do. It's awesome when fitness becomes a lifestyle and just not a workout. How do you make fitness fun for the whole family? I love when you're on Instagram and you have your whole family on the page doing workouts.
I wish I could tell you there was some way. The number one way, Matthew, is that I enjoy it. And that's infectious. Like I said to every new client who starts with me, I want to know what you hate in exercise. What do you hate? Do you hate running? Do you hate whatever? We will never do it. I don't want to make you hate exercise. Let me find all the things that you love, and then let's find a way to pull elements or the exact things that you love into your training. Because if you enjoy it, if I speak a lot on my Instagram about the importance of creativity and play, if you can include creativity and playfulness in your training, you will inherently enjoy it. You'll find moments of levity and joy in your training. And if you thought of your training as this pocket of time in the day where you got to listen to your favorite music, have fun. If you work with a training partner, joke around and play and chat to your training partner, you wouldn't wait for motivation because you would be excited to do that thing. And I think so often this conversation around motivation for exercise has become an important conversation because actually the exercise people are doing isn't something they enjoy. So they have to find a way to get motivated for it. But if you find a way to enjoy it, you don't need motivation. When has anyone ever thought, God, I'm just not motivated to play video games today? It's just not a thing. If you like playing video games, you don't need motivation. You sit down and you play video games. And if you enjoy your training, it's obvious. And I think what's so obvious to my family, my son and my daughter, is that they see me back here having fun. I'm not dragging my heel. I have to go to the gym. I've been 3 days I haven't been, but now I have to be. I do it because I love it. And they see when, especially my son, when I'm out in the playground with him, I say especially him because he's 6 and my daughter's 1.5, so she doesn't quite get it yet. But when I'm out with my son and we're in the playground, I've never made him aware of this. It's just something you notice as a person. All the other parents are standing still or they're on their phone. And when their kid comes up to them and says, hey, chase me, or let's go there, or let's climb over this thing, it's like, no, go don't be frightened, you know. Whereas I'm the one who's literally leaping over fences, bear crawling after them, tumbling when they're tumbling, doing monkey bars with them. Because if it's within your capacity to do it, it's not a flex to do it. It's just fun. And they play like that. And the fact that I play like that and then highlight to my son, well, so much of the training I do allows me to move this way. He goes, well, oh, that's pretty cool. And he's got sports day coming up, and he says to me, like, winning doesn't matter, but I would like to be faster. I'm like, well, you know, if you do this thing and this thing, you'll be quicker. It doesn't matter if you win or not, but you'll be quicker. And that's fun because he watches superheroes, so you can kind of become a bit of a superhero. And, you know, you frame it in these ways, and of course it's fun to exercise. It's fun to move your body. It's fun to be out of breath. It's just not fun staying out of breath. You want to recover. But like, if you accept that all of these things are fun, if you have a fun way to engage with it, then that playfulness never goes away and it's infectious. Like, he can't wait to come into the gym with me here, put on some crazy music and do whatever he does. I don't restrict him to the space. If he wants to run outside and play with the ball and then come in here and press his full kilo and deadlift something and then run off again, I'm not forcing him to do a workout. He's just seeing it. It's part of our life. And like it was for me growing up, it's part of his family culture.
Yeah, I mean, so basically, people are making it harder than it needs to be, and that's why we have people like you, and they can sign up for your training.
Right. Well, I appreciate you mentioning that. But I work with this lady in North London who, for the longest time, didn't enjoy exercise, and as a result, wasn't getting results. And I'd been training her for like 6 months or so, and I said to her, "We had this conversation about what you would like and what you don't like, but I don't think you were honest. I think you were answering like what you thought I wanted to hear. So let's have this conversation again. What would look like a fun session? What would look like a fun way to spend the hour in the gym?" And she said, "Don't laugh. I've always wanted to be able to do a handstand." So I was like, "Awesome. Let's do wall walks. Let's walk up the wall into a handstand position and walk down." Part of the conversation, she said, I've always been crap at jumping." It's like, okay, let's put a really low box on the floor and see if you can get onto it. Next week, let's add 1 centimeter, see if you can get onto it. And she said, my boss at work really pisses me off. I'd love to print out a picture of him and stick it on the boxing bag and box. She can't box. She's never going to be a boxer. But whacking a boxing bag is great endurance and cardio. It's a great way to develop speed and mechanics and balance, and it's fun. And now that we have these 3 ways for her to engage with fun movement, she's got all of her results over the last year. She's lost the weight, she enjoys exercise, she's more consistent, she's consistent with her food because she's had the results. It all centers around just finding the thing that you want to do that actually feels good to your body and you enjoy. And if you enjoy it, you repeat it. If you repeat it, you get better at it. It's a
No,
self-fulfilling prophecy.
it's really cool how those small wins stack up.
Yeah. What do you do for your training?
I actually box a little bit, and I hit the bag, and that helps out a lot. I jump rope. I go swimming. I want to do some more kettlebells now. I've never really dove into it as much, but now knowing all the benefits from it,
Yeah.
it's really, really, really cool that you're sharing all this knowledge. What's one fact about kettlebells that surprised most people?
That it's not bad for your lower back. I think that's like the number one thing that people assume. Isn't that bad for your lower back? No, no more so than hinging in general. For those of your listeners that don't know, hinging is just tipping from the hip. We do it all day, every day. When we pick things up, when we tie our shoes, there's a million ways that you tip from your hip. When you dip your head to put your bum in your car, you're hinging. There's nothing inherently bad about a hinge. Learning the right technique keeps you safe. Learning it slowly and sequentially means that you can learn it through repetition. The repetition becomes entrenched. Once it's entrenched, you can go up in the weight without risking injury and build on that development. So one of the number one things, if I had to pick one other, is that it's only for cardio. It's definitely not only for cardio. And you really can build like a pretty impressive physique with kettlebells. You're not going to end up looking like you're a bodybuilder on stage, but you can get damn close. And I think for what people are generally, in my experience, looking for, they want to be healthier, they want to be stronger, they want to not feel so stiff, and they want to lose a little bit of body fat. And I think for all of those things, the kettlebell can do every single one of those things. And so when it is getting started, you've asked me about beginners, and now you've just asked me, well, like, what's an uneducated assumption? So let's assume we're speaking to a beginner, someone who's never touched a kettlebell before. If you're going to buy one kettlebell, there is an adjustable kettlebell that you can now buy, which would kind of give you one bell that lasts almost forever. I think in the US, Kettlebell Kings are a really good producer, although there are a couple of others. In the UK and Europe, there's Omnibell and a couple of others like that. Now, the Omnibell kettlebell, the reason why I mention it is because it's adjustable like this. So this is the Omnibell adjustable kettlebell. It's got this seam around it here, which means that you can take it apart and unload the weights from inside it. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because there's more cheap options on the market that are not worth your money. It's worth buying the right thing once and you'll never have to rebuy again. And the reason why I'm mentioning this kettlebell as well is because if you are a beginner, this goes down to 12 kilos. I think they've just made one that goes down to 4 kilos. But this goes from 12 kilos to 32 kilos. So that goes from 26 pounds up to 71 pounds in one kettlebell. And it's made so well that you can use it exactly as a kettlebell should be used. Whereas the plate-loaded adjustable kettlebells are not particularly functionally adapt to being used fully as a kettlebell. But yeah, like buying a kettlebell, having one at home, is one of the best ways to stay on top of your health and fitness and strength goals because it's so convenient. It's right there at home. And you don't have to get extravagant with the movements. You can deadlift it, squat it, do a push-up, do a row, and that's it initially. And you've not had to do a swing, a clean, a snatch, a Turkish get up, nothing technical, just a deadlift, a squat, a row, and a push-up. And you've got yourself a home gym.
Now, Glenn, what results should someone expect in the first 30 days working with kettlebells?
I guess that's like how long is a piece of string kind of question, right? What was their starting point? What's their effort input level? How many times a week are they training? How long are they training for? Et cetera, et cetera. Look, let's say you do zero exercise and you think, I'm going to start training. I'm going to do a 15 to 20 minute long workout for 3 to 5 days a week. Let's say 2 days of training, 1 day rest, 2 days of training, 1 day rest, 4 to 5 days a week, something like that. I think what you would expect to find is that your overall calorie burn for the amount of time that you're training is higher than it would be in a normal gym setting because you're working harder in general. Your amount of time invested in the workouts is lower than normal, so you have more free time. And I think what you're probably going to see is a lot of that what the hell effect. Because initially it's such a new object that you're going to get massive increases in strength and endurance, body fat loss, muscle gain, neural engagement. So your mind is so much more active during these workouts because being coordinated when you train takes attention, it takes focus, where sitting on a pec deck machine in the gym can be a very absent-minded thing to go through. You can be thinking about a million other things, not really paying attention. What I tend to see from people who just start kettlebell training is that they're deriving so much more joy from their workouts. That's the number one thing. It just frees up their time, but also engages them in a much more focused way when they are training. Their grip strength goes through the roof. Their lower back and core strength goes through the roof because these are things that don't typically get trained in other scenarios. So I think that's where it would start. But then when you look at any of my programs, and there's tons of free training on my YouTube channel, as well as on my Instagram. And right now my full program is free. If people were to go there, it's free for 7 days. There are very short ways to train, 10, 15, 20 minutes, where you can get a really good workout with a kettlebell and just dip into it. But one of the programs I have is called Quick Steal because you want to quickly steal some time away from the family and you're using steel. That was the reason why I said Quick Steal. But you can use 10 to 20 minutes, get a really savage workout, and then get back to what you were doing before. Having trained every muscle in your body, improved coordination, worked on a skill, which is just such a valuable thing to have in your day. Because as we all get older, we become quite entrenched in the things we're good at and stop trying the things that we're not. And I think when you start learning something new, whether it's art or an instrument or a new training style or a martial art, whatever, a language, you get so much value from that. You feel better about yourself. You've engaged your mind in a new way. You've become creative again because when you learn something new, you need to be creative and problem solve in a new way. There's so much to be derived from it.
Just by working out with a kettlebell, it helps your mobility, your flexibility, your strength. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah. All of it takes intention. Look, anything done badly leads to, poor results or negative results. So it all takes intention. It all takes the right focus and the right intent. So often I say to my clients, don't do the rep, do the exercise. Like, what are we here for? Don't give me 10 rubbish push-ups. If push-up is the example, let's decently bend at the elbow and flex the shoulders down, bring your chest to the floor, squeeze away. Don't sort of bounce around and do nothing. So that's what I mean about intention. Have the right intention for your workout. Every single one of my workouts starts with a mobility drill because I want to get really nice and mobile and warmed up first. And I want to make sure that I bend so I don't break. So I want to make sure that I'm working on my mobility. It's a lovely way to start the session. Then you get into the workout and whatever the focus of that workout is, you stay focused on it and you can get strong in extra ranges of motion so that you don't get stiff and tight as you get older. You can just maintain a really good movement and a good range of strength.
And that's why we have a professional like you, and all your information will be in the description down below. I have to ask you, do you know where kettlebells come from?
Yeah, so the history of kettlebells kind of draws back to two places. There's Russia, like 17th century Russia. They had kettlebells. They didn't look quite like these do. They were used for weighing the take of the day from the field. So when farmers would bring the hay from the day or the grain from the day off the field, they'd put it into a scale, and then they'd put weights on the other side of that scale to get an accurate measurement of how much they had from the day. And they were measured in something called poods, POODS in poods. So you would have 1 pood, 1.5, 2, etc. And that was kind of the Russian agricultural origin of the kettlebell. And then farmers started using them for training, and then the Russian army started using them for training. But they do predate that, actually. They go back to Persia, and they even go back to China. But what goes back to China are these. This is a replica of something called a stone lock. I'm speaking on it right now, but this is called a stone lock. And these were used in China. This one's about 10 kilograms. Yeah, there's a 10 on it, 10 kilos. Made from a German company called Kiba Berlin. Very cool. They make my mace as well. And they also made this pretty kettlebell here, which is also fully usable. Nice kettlebell, but it's just like designing, you know. But the kettlebell goes back to China in the form of a stone lock, where guys would use it to swing or juggle it. They would spin it and rotate it and catch it on their shoulder, or catch it on an outstretched arm, or catch it on their fist. So it goes back quite some way. And then lifts like the Turkish get-up go back to, I think, the first Olympics, where the Turkish lifters would be challenged to lift one another off the floor from lying on their back. And that's where that lift originates. And then there's lifts like the bench press, which started with a barbell but have been taken over by the world of kettlebell lifters as well. So they're part of history. They're really part of history. And that's kind of what I love about the implements I use now, is that the maces and garters date back hundreds, if not thousands of years. The practice of stone lifting is as old as humans are, and that's what sandbags are. It's a kind of similar practice to stone lifting. And kettlebells date back a long time as well. So it just feels primal. It feels like, I joked the other day with a client that in workouts where I combine the 3 implements, I just feel like an unstoppable ancient warrior of some sort. Like I've lifted heavy stones off the floor, trained my throwing positions and throwing movements with load, and then done heavy clean and pressing and stuff like that. You just feel like a beast or something, you know? It's great.
Yeah, that's cool to learn. I mean, knowing the history makes it even more meaningful. Glenn, what's next for you and your kettlebell journey?
I think what I'm really focusing on now is working with the extended community I have online. I have all of my programs are in one place on school.com. We're in a group called Strength in Numbers, because I really believe when I've seen people make progress, it's because they have strong communities around them. And that's what we're trying to do there. So I'm putting all of my programs there. And really, I'm just focused on trying to become a better and better version of myself in the framework of being a coach, and working with everyone from the disabled to professional athlete, working with across the age spectrum. I want to be the best version of a coach I can be for each one of these implements, and for each interesting new goal that I'm introduced to by my clients. I have no major competition ambition at the moment. I flirted with those things for many years. But as it stands, I want to get better at doing what I do in my own training and become. I feel like I've been put here to be a good coach for people. And so I want to hone my craft as a coach and become better and better at working with people across the spectrum of ability and age.
Glenn, I'm looking forward to seeing what you can do in the future, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you're doing right now. It's really impactful. All your information will be in the description down below, but I want to make sure that people know where to find you. Where can people follow and support your work?
Thanks a lot. The KV6 on Instagram, THEKB, then the number 6IX. That's me on Instagram, the KV6. And then all my links are through there. I've got a YouTube channel as well. Most of my work goes up on Instagram these days. I wish I had the time to do more across the other social platforms. But if you're interested in my programs, and there are full programs, short workout programs, massive time spent on tutorials, nutrition, mobility, supplementation, that is all in that Strength in Numbers community. And like I said, it is free at the moment for 7 days, free access. I also do live calls every fortnight on there, so people can come and chat to me directly, have questions answered. We go through videos of people's lifts. So I do form reviews to keep people improving with their technique and stuff like that there. And it would be great to see more people joining me through that community. So thanks for asking.
Yeah, no, you are the trainer to go to for kettlebell training. And the show is called Every Day is Friday. And Friday has a special energy, whether it's freedom, excitement, or just feeling of accomplishment after a long week. Glenn, I really want to ask you, I want to hear from you. What does Friday mean to you?
That's a deep question, man, because Friday for me was always a really auspicious day in my family home. It was a day where we would take that much more time to be a family together. It would be extended time at the dinner table. It would be board games afterwards. It would be extra fun in the afternoons. For me, with my own family now, I stop working from about 1:30, 2 o'clock on a Friday so that I can be with my daughter for a solid hour and a half before my daughter go pick my son up from school. And then we spend the rest of the day together. So Fridays for me mean like uninterrupted family time. And I live in a beautiful part of South London, Kingston upon Thames, where we're right along the river. And when it's, spring now, it's just a beautiful place to be. Other families and wildlife and all the rest of it are all out. So just being out in nature,
I love that definition.
that's Friday. That's a good one.
Yeah, every day is Friday is about bringing that energy into everyday life. And
Yeah.
Glenn, this is your opportunity. This is your chance to leave the listeners with something powerful. Is there anything else you want to share?
I think to take the pressure off it yourself when it comes to this stuff, and you're listening to someone like me who's made a whole personality out of training, I think we all have ambitions to be a little bit healthier or to be a little bit stronger or to be a little bit more consistent. And there's no magic bullet. I think take the pressure off yourself, find the thing that you enjoy and don't judge it, whether it's doing handstands, going for a walk in nature, or swinging a kettlebell. It doesn't matter. Find the thing that works for your body, for who you are right now, because who you are at 15 is it's different to who you are at 50. Find what works for you. Find some joy in the routine of it and find a way to have a touch point with it more often than you don't. The thing that I've always said to my clients is the magic number is 4 out of 7. If you can train or do something related to enjoying exercise 4 days out of 7, that's the majority and that's a habit. But 3 or 2 days out of 7 is just something you're doing every so often. You're never really going to build on that. Find a way to go for a walk 7 days a week or 6 days a week. Find a way to engage with your exercise routine 4 days a week. It will keep you plugged into that process. Take the pressure off. Enjoy the whole journey you choose. There's no one right way. Just find the way you enjoy and engage with it in the way that is meaningful to you, and then seek progression from it. That's it. That's the whole experience. There's no magic. There's no magic implement. There's no magic nutrition program. Just do the thing you enjoy consistently and you'll get the results.
That is a great takeaway. And I know the listeners got a lot of value out of this, and it's been an awesome conversation. I appreciate you being here and sharing your stories and experiences.
Thank you again for inviting me on. It's been a pleasure.
No, it's my pleasure. And to the listeners, stay tuned for more amazing stories on Every Day is Friday Podcast 365. If you enjoyed this, make sure you follow and share and keep Every Day is Friday mindset going. Till next time, stay inspired and make every day feel like Friday. Until next time.